Brendan O'Brien, Esquire. I'm not an Esquire, but I wish.
I'm Dame Reena Ezra. No, I'm just kidding.
So there's two clones of Reena right now, and there is Jordan and Brendan. No, let's get started with this show. We're your hosts here at Sessions with Mary Jane, and we are with Mary Jane, so to speak. And we have on a very wonderful guest. He's an old friend of mine who is very multi-talented. He is an artist in many different senses, but I think primarily he'd say that he's a writer, filmmaker, comedian, Brian Fairbanks.
Woo! Good to be here with you three wonderful people.
Where are you coming at us from?
I'm from New Orleans, where I have lived for the past couple of years, since I moved from New York. Yeah, it's good to be here.
That's an adjustment. Do you miss New York?
Yeah.
Or you're like, no, never.
You know, I miss New York once in a while when something really cool happens and it's own, like, I don't know, Monty Python doing their final show at the Beacon. It's like, that's it. That's the only show on the tour. There's no show south. It's either you live in New York or fly in or whatever. That makes me sad. But, you know, it really doesn't, because once in a while I'll hear about something going on in New York and I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I'm not there. Oh, you guys, it's always 30 degrees colder in New York, no matter what time of year it is, so it's just like great. I'm really glad it's only like, it's cold, but it was 60 today, you know. That's cold.
Wow.
So
we've gotten snow.
No.
I wish I had 60s and the 60-degree weather. Yeah, all perspective.
Yeah,
it's all perspective.
Yeah, no snow, thank you. You can keep that.
Yes. Well, snow or not, Brian, we have a challenge for you today, just so that you know.
Okay.
And shine.
Yeah, and so, you know what? We're going to give this challenge to you, and you answer so we're going to give you a list, and you can name items on this list at any point during the podcast. You interrupt in the middle of someone getting emotional about their parents. If you have to, you say this item on the list, and your list today is to name as many magazines as you can.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
Yes. Of all the magazine publications, you say them, we write them down, and we keep track of them throughout the course of the podcast.
We'll fact check you so we know if you're making one up.
All right. So, like, Southern Stud Weekly is not real. You're going to fact check that.
Yeah, we'll know. Yeah.
I hope it is.
Yes.
I hope it is real.
I'm sure there is a magazine called that. You just probably won't find it online. Just at the truck stop.
No, there is a Southern Stud Welding Company, though. So close, Brian, but not today.
We're gonna find out if they have a magazine.
Yes.
They do. We have to subscribe now.
Yeah. Do you have
the first 4 people to sign up for it?
Subscribe.
Do you have a favorite magazine, or at least like a magazine that you remember like reading at some point in your life that you really enjoyed?
Yes, I have read a magazine in my life, and I enjoyed it. Right next to my screen, I don't know if it's allowed to. This was not set up. I just happened.
You can't look it up.
Garden and Gun magazine next to me.
Oh my god!
For the people who don't have video, because nobody has video, this is an audio podcast. That is what was that? Garden and Gun.
Garden and Gun.
It's real. I had to hold it up to the camera so that you would see I did not make this magazine up, nor do I make up the subscription.
It sounds like
do this magazine.
Hardcore stay-at-home mom reading. Garden and Gun.
Yes, it really should be, but surprisingly, it covers a very diverse area. Like it's not this. The cover is about homes that are in like the Caribbean or something. And then it talks about bird dogs in North Carolina, a cabin in Tennessee, and how to make the perfect rum old fashioned. Wow. I mean, it is a very weird magazine.
Wow.
Yeah, where are the guns though?
Oh, there's guns. It's usually just about hunting though, which is really lame, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like cool guns.
Yeah. Wait, how long have you been a subscriber to Garden and Gun magazine?
I I think for a couple years now, when I moved back to New Orleans, I would see it at the grocery store. Like, it was actually by the checkout counter. And I was like, come on, this is a prank. And it's a really nice magazine. It's really glossy. There's a lot of, like, high quality, just beautiful black and white images of dogs and boats and fish and alcohol, which is always something to, like, drool over. So and checking it out, actually.
Noted.
Yeah, I'm sold. That's the thing. Is like grocery store checkouts are probably the best place to sell magazines, because it's just like you literally. I mean, actually, you can look at your phone, but for so long you would stand there, and then you would just see the images that would catch your eye as you waited to ring your food up.
That's where you got all the celebrity gossip.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, they're doing what? Who broke up with who?
Yeah.
Someone someone's pregnant, and then it's all fake. But
how many people did drunk Ben Affleck run over with his SUV?
Like, all of them.
That's the only way you can find out is looking at the cover of National Enquirer.
Yeah, go to page 32.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where does I have to ask, because your last name, Mr. Fairbanks. What is your origin?
I originated from my mother.
I was like, I don't know how I'm going to ask this question. It's just happening. The words are out of my mouth. It's too late.
Let me tell you about how pregnancy works.
Oh, yes, good, because I'm a woman and I must know.
It's actually really not that exciting of a story, but my mother's side of the family is Italian and Canadian, and my father's side of the family is English and a little Italian, but the name Fairbanks obviously is about as fucking British as you can get.
Yeah, it sounds like you should be a character in Mary Poppins.
Yeah. The only time the name Fairbanks pops up in pop culture is in two cases. One, the Dear White People movie, and I'm not sure the show, but the dean of the college is, I think, a black guy named Dean Fairbanks, which is hilarious to me, because I'm pretty sure there are no black people with the last name Fairbanks. I would love to meet them, because we're all fucking boring white people who have, like, English ancestors, right? Like, no, like, I could do a 23andMe and it would just be the most boring shit you've ever read. I'd love to meet someone I'm related to who doesn't, like, have exactly the same fucking background. And the other thing is that the Jennifer Beals character on the L Word is named Dana Fairbanks, which is my dad's name.
Wow, he's famous.
So I tried watching that show with a friend of mine, and I was like, no, it's too weird. You have to turn it off. They keep talking about Dana Fairbanks, and it's like they're talking about my dad, but it's this woman named Jennifer, that Jennifer Beals plays. And I'm like,
wow.
Too weird, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. How big is the Fairbanks family?
It's pretty big, because I think there have been Fairbankses in the U.S., especially for, since the 1600s. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of distantly related to Douglas Fairbanks.
Oh, that's cool.
Senior and junior, who started United Artists with Charlie Chaplin and his wife.
Wait, no.
That's cool.
So that's like my cool celeb family member connection.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. So, whatever. I don't know any of those people, they're like really distant.
Yeah.
But it's I like to, put it on the resume, try to get it. Just kidding. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
My family.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Did you inherit any of the sword fighting genes from Douglas Fairbanks?
No. I'm afraid of heights, so I don't want to go up on the ship's mast. The John Belushi thing in Animal House, where he goes down the mast with the sword.
Oh, yeah.
No, thank you. Cannot do that.
Yeah.
I also have to ask, how do you and Jordan know each other? How did you guys meet? Because I always knew of you, and finally we're, virtually meeting you and seeing all of your stuff on social media. But then, tell the tale.
Well, Jordan and I have a special relationship born of dark alley in a crack house.
Basically, yeah.
Is that true though?
What?
In the Marigny neighborhood, the Bywater,
Yeah.
St. Rock neighborhood of New Orleans. Yeah. Where we used to do improvisational comedy together. We were not in the same.
Yes.
I think you were in the class before or after me, or something like that. So we were basically
Well,
at the
you
same
were in
level. I think.
I think it was like the same night. It was just you had like the 6 o'clock and I had the 8 o'clock class or something like that. And so many of those people, your class is like a legendary class, though, right?
Yeah. Well,
The people that are in that class are
like there are people who like at that time like. People were talking about how Benji had just released an album. So one person in the class had released an album. Then another kid in the class, or another person in the class, was just on, like Theo was in that class.
Oh.
Theo Crane was in that class. And then he was on Underground, I think at that time, where he was about to be on Underground. And then Rob Kirkovich was also in that class. And he's like just a regular on NCIS, the nerd guy. Every one of those shows is a nerd guy.
Yeah, all those guys like have gone on to big things, and of course yourself.
Well, yeah, of course, and also there's that guy Bart. Bart was in my class as well. There's another actor, and I saw him on a set, and like it was during COVID time, so I couldn't really talk to him, but he was also on.
Well, wherever you
In
are,
our
Bart.
class, yeah.
Shout out to you, Bart.
But he's getting work. He's working. He's in
Bart.
some like reenactment show. Yeah, we'll see him eventually. Check his IMDb. I'm not gonna give his last name because he didn't respond to my Facebook message. But.
So no one's gonna know. People are gonna search IMDb for just Bart.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many they'll have no idea.
All right, going through all the Barts tonight.
Ooh, Bart Fairbanks.
That's right.
Are you a fan of the improv? And do you like?
Yeah,
doing
how'd
it?
you get into that?
I am. Well, this is the funny thing is that a couple of people I know were in a musical improv competition thing where it was like a couple of teams doing musical improv at this theater in New Orleans, and I went. And I was like, wow, I can't sing or dance. I have no idea, like, of rhythm or melody, but I could totally do this. And so I signed up for a class, and the theater was just, like, maybe a block and a half away from my house at the time. So it seemed like a thing to do. And I met so many awesome people through it that I kind of got sucked into doing it more and like being in shows. And I am not good. Like Jordan's really like that. All kidding aside, Jordan was phenomenal at it. Like right from the beginning. No. I remember the first show, we saw each other's shows because we were the same night or whatever. And Jordan's show, like his class was absolutely phenomenal. And we were like, we suck at this. We thought we were really funny. And then, like, these guys come on, and it was just, like, effortless. Come to find out, they're, like, half of them are professional actors. Like, making, like, $1 million a year on a major CBS TV show. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now I don't feel so bad about it. But, just got, like, sucked into the cult, man. That's how it works, right,
That's how
Jordan?
it goes, yeah.
We all just get sucked into the comedy cult.
That's how all three of us met. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, we're a cult friendship.
Yeah,
Did you guys get sucked in? You guys are your own cult, though, so it's, no one's telling you what to do.
Yeah, honestly, there's many sects of cults these days. It's so easy to make a cult. It's like actually probably one of the easiest things you could start up if you really want to.
You just have to believe.
Yeah, that's it.
That's right.
Yep.
That's it. That's all
Yourselves.
there is.
It's a cult of yourself, cult of personality,
That's
whatever.
right.
Whatever.
So, what are you up to today? What are you? Because I know, like, a lot before we started recording, you gave your answer, which is just like the basic pandemic answer, like everything going.
Sorry.
No. I'm saying like very relatable. Agree. Like it's like you don't have to really I mean, I want you to elaborate for the folks at home, but you don't really have to like explain your feeling anymore. There's just so much of just stuff going on, and like I mean, it's just an abnormal world right now. Everybody being affected by different stuff. I mean, different things going on. But what is what are you like focusing on now, and what is going on now? Like, share with people what you're working on.
All right, so today was one of the biggest days of my life, and that's why I didn't want to say anything right at the top, because I just like, the whole conversation is just going to be sidetracked when you start talking about the stuff. But here we go.
No, go.
Suck it. So basically what's going on is that I am trying to sell my second book. My first book is done. It's ready to come out, but it's not out for a couple months.
Wait, and the first book title?
The first book is going to be called Wizards, David Duke, The Rise of the Far Right and America's Wildest Election is the full title that apparently was approved. So that's the title that they went with. And that's coming out in, I want to say, September, October, just before the midterms. Cool. That's the idea, at least. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. So then I've been writing this book about country music for the past couple months, and I got an agent with a pitch that I wrote up. And today I had to have a bunch of Zoom calls with publishers to basically like close the deal with all these people. And I think it went really well, but it was incredibly stressful. I'm looking forward to this conversation because it's the only one where I didn't have to be like, okay, so like you should let me write this book because I've already written the whole fucking book. You can't say that, so you have to like pitch something that's already a done deal. You know, it was just really weird and stressful, and they're all just like stone faced, but then they'll say things at the end like, we love this idea, we can't wait to work with you. Like, oh, okay, they're gonna make an offer. Like the whole time though, you're just like, I'm doing a terrible job. And, like these New Yorkers, they're so mean. Just kidding, they're all right.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was, I mean, I think it was a good day in the end. But yes, that is like, my whole life has been sort of leading up to today. And now it's done. I'm like, all right, I did what I could. Now let's smoke some marijuana.
I'm so glad we're at the end of your day.
Right, yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, it's the perfect.
That's wow. I mean, that's wonderful. That's solid.
It's a big day.
Where did your love for writing come from? Your relationship with that?
Well, so Reena, my great grandfather's Douglas Fairbanks.
I knew he was gonna drop the name again.
My grandfather started United Artists with Charlie Chaplin. No, it actually is a family thing. My mother was a sort of like, I wouldn't say an amateur writer, but it wasn't her career either. And her father is a musical theater writer, actor, director, who has just like written all these musicals. And I have no musical talent. So I think I got like half of the gene from him, like the writing side of it, but not the performing as a musical singer. Gotcha. But, you know, he wasn't like a Broadway, I mean, he's still alive. He wasn't a Broadway, you know, he didn't write hit musicals you've heard of. He like wrote regional theater that was successful, you know.
A musical's still a musical.
He built a career on it. Yeah.
It's almost
he built
better.
a career, but he didn't make it big.
What, and your dad did what for work?
My dad was a teacher, and he has no creative talent. He will tell you he doesn't read fiction. He doesn't like.
But a teacher in what?
Have any creative bone in his body?
What subject matter?
Math.
Math.
Yes.
The fucking opposite of creativity. Horror of mathematics.
people in mathematics would disagree with you with that. There's tons of creativity in that. But let's debate math. No.
2 plus 2 equals what?
Whatever you wanted to.
He reads magazines like Forbes and The Economist and
good shit.
These are solid choices.
Nice.
2 in there, 2 more.
Okay, so what age did you start writing consistently? And
11.
what were you journaling?
No, I wrote a novel when I was 11 that when I was 14, it got accepted by a publisher and it never came out. And I'll tell you why, is that it took so long for them to edit it and prepare it that Columbine happened in the time. And the book was a comedy novel about a school shooting.
Oh my God.
And they were just like, nope. And they pulled the plug and then nobody wanted to touch it. And so it never came out. It's never come out. It'll never come out, probably.
Wow, wait, that's wild. That's an exclusive to Sessions with Mary Jane. They got their hands on a manuscript of your novel. No.
Yeah,
yeah, you're the anarchist cookbook. Your novel is the anarchist cookbook, and now people are getting. Oh no, Brian! Oh no!
Oh no!
Yeah, it was me. It was me all along. It wasn't Marilyn Manson. It was me.
Wow, I knew it. I never bought that guy writing that.
Sometimes unreleased novels are the best novels, though. So
it'll
be an NFT one day.
That's right.
I want to read that.
Sell it for 4 Ether.
Talk about
okay.
Talk about
I'll take it.
Bad timing.
Yeah, really bad timing. I mean, part of it too is that it was a Colorado publisher.
Wow.
So they really couldn't put it out. Even if it was like a serious book about it, it was just like the appearance of capitalizing it anyway.
Sure,
and then certainly laughing about a school shooting, definitely not acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was going through your mind at 11 to age 14 that you were writing this thing?
Yeah, good question. Well, there were school shootings before Columbine. It's just that they were smaller scale and people weren't really talking about them. But I 2 things happened. One is that I read a story in Time magazine about like a school shooter, like in the doctor's office, you know, when I was like 11. And at the same time that year, I discovered Stephen King. And the first book I read was the Bachman books, which has a now banned story. Like it's only Stephen King story or book that you cannot buy new anymore. He like straight up removed it from publication. It's out of print and it's about a school shooting. And he worried that people were going to kill people. Like once he got famous, he was like, you know what? This doesn't need to be out there anymore. Like this is not a great story and it can only bite my ass later. So he pulled it from the book. But I read it and was like, I'm not going to go kill anybody, but I really think that there is not necessarily a better story, but another story that's sort of in a similar vein. Comic though, sort of like a kid who gets caught up in his friend's plan to like blow up the school. And he was just like working with the FBI. Like he's not like a terrorist. He's not like helping this guy. He's actually like informant the whole time. But it's very like snarky Holden Caulfield style, and that's just not going to work at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like a fictional piece that you had written, right?
Yeah.
So how'd you make the jump?
I've had no success with fiction. Like it's all been stories like that where I've been like close to getting a deal or something like that, and just like didn't happen. And the minute I came up with a pitch for a nonfiction book, it was like sold immediately. So.
What is it? Do you think about the market that fiction is just harder to sell than nonfiction?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this a lot because, like, I'm a fiction writer. Like, I don't really want to do nonfiction for the rest of my life, but and I've got all these great ideas sitting around. But I feel like having pitched a lot of stuff and had it like almost get there, the vibe I'm getting with a lot of this is like, this is really great, but you know, there's 3,000 other, you know, say murder mystery books or comedy novels or dramas about school shootings or whatever it is. And it's just, with nonfiction, it's really easy to see like what's worth. Like you can look up on these like websites books about country music. How do they do well? Like, did someone come up with this exact idea? Does it involve like these real people or not? And right away, the publisher can go, you know, people are buying a lot of these country music books. We should put out a country music book. And boom, it's just like easier for them to figure out the profitability, I guess, which is really depressing in a way to think about. But it like has helped me because the first book, I like tweaked it knowing what would sell. And the second book, I'd already been through the process of selling the first book and it worked. And I just like took my pitch for the first book and changed the names. And that's so, you know, I think it really, it's just like helps to have like a system already there. Basically.
Yeah. What was it about like David Duke and like that story that got you interested in writing about it?
Well, it's funny is because it started originally as a book about Edwin Edwards, who was David Duke's opponent in the 1991 Louisiana governor's race, in the race that, you know, gave the title America's Wildest Election. And I, for a couple of years, tried to figure out how a documentary about him would work. Like, this guy's out of the spotlight. He's not in office. He's not running for president. Who cares about Edwin Edwards? And then the Capitol riot happened. And I suddenly connected David Duke back to Charlottesville, back to Trump, and then back to Pat Buchanan and George Bush in 92, and then 91 with David Duke. And there is a direct connection between all these people. And then so the book became like, oh, well, this is really about David Duke. But Edwin Edwards is just such a great character. He's so funny and you know, when he died last year, he was probably the last really great left-leaning Democratic politician. Like, if you don't count Bill Clinton and that, like, brilliant, like, politician, but also like a really effective campaigner, and like all these things that like Obama had people do this. Like, Obama was not like a genius strategist. It was his people that came up with these things. But Edwards did it all, you know? So I just, you know, the Republicans always have these people. They have their Trumps and their Dukes and their like brilliant Karl Rove type people, but the Democrats don't have that famous name. And I'm like, it's Edwin Edwards. Edwin Edwards is the one that we should like emulate if we want to win these elections. So it sort of all kind of came together as like, this is how Edwards won. And like, but in the end, the far right wins anyway, because we get Trump and we get Charlottesville and the Capitol riot. So I was sort of like pitched it as a warning, you know, what did you like? Edwin Edwards defeated this guy. What did he do that we haven't done in the 30 years since then? And that's sort of what the book is.
You have dabbled in politics as well, right? You've worked on some campaigns, been around that stuff. What has your experience been like working in politics?
I worked for a lot of losers, and as soon as I stopped working in politics, those people all won. It was probably me.
That's right, Fairbanks. Who's the loser now?
Go back to art, Fairbanks.
Yep. Well, I like worked on the 2000 and 2004 campaigns, and then I didn't work at all in 2008. Like, I turned down a job running a candidate I won't talk about that wanted someone to run his office in Iowa, where I'd never been. And he ended up like almost winning. So I should have probably said yes. but Obama won that one. And I'm glad because that was like the first time in a long time a Democrat had won. So that was pretty good. But yeah, like I like everybody that I worked with eventually won something, but not through anything I did. I knew Bill de Blasio before he was mayor of New York. He was like the nicest city councilman in New York. He was the only one who knew my name. The only one who like would just like people would be talking to him and be like, "Shut up! I'm talking to Brian. Come on!" Like just like shit. And then he ran and won, and I was like, "See, like, you only won because I had nothing to do with the campaign." So, you know, we won't talk about his mayoralship, but you know, it was like things like that. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not actually really good at this or whatever. So I just stopped doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just want to jump back to the writing for a sec, because you've been writing for very, very long. But what about your moments where you hit a wall? What do you do? Or have you not had those moments? But like, do you do you sometimes really just hate it, just hate the process of writing sometimes?
Yeah. Well, for me, the rewriting process is where I hit the wall all the time, because I am really good at being an editor of other people's stuff, because I have nothing to lose. Like, I'm removed from the material. It has no like special purpose, or I'm not trying to get something out of it. Yeah. Like when I write something, I'm like, I really want this to be funny, or I really want like this to be emotionally resonant. And when I'm reading it through, I go, I know it's not. The problem is here on this page or this section, but I can't fix it. They're like, there's a fucking wall. Yeah. And I don't know. And that's probably why I haven't had fiction published, is that I just am not a good editor of myself. And I think it was Ray Bradbury who said that when you write a story, you should put it in a drawer for a year and then go back to it and you'll have fresh eyes. Of course, Ray Bradbury was a fucking hugely successful millionaire who could write an entire book and then throw it in the garbage after a year if he wanted to. Have that luxury, right? Like, you know, I haven't had success yet. I can't take my time.
This bestseller bores me.
We go to Brian's house with just drawers full of things for, and he's revisited them a year and still nothing's happened.
Right. I mean, in a technological sense, yes, my computer is, you know, folders of finished, quote unquote, finished books that are not finished because I've just edited them like 20 times. I'm like, I can't. I know what's wrong, but I cannot deal with this.
Is there a family member or a close friend that you give them to read? One of the first people to read your work?
It's usually been past girlfriends, but because like, you know, I'll live with them and they're like, well, I want to read this thing you've been obsessing over for like 6 months or whatever. Like, okay, fine, you can read it. And then, you know, they're not always creative people, and they certainly aren't like novelists. I don't think I've ever dated like an actual novelist, which would be a smart thing to do, but I've just never done it.
On to-do list.
Going back to my dating apps and changing what I'm looking for. It just I feel like they've given me good feedback, but I really needed, you know, you need like a teacher, you need a professor, a fellow
mentor,
novelist to really tell you what's structurally wrong with something, or when there's like a character that's not working and how to fix it. They may get a vibe, you know, it's like you give someone any book to read, they're going to be like, I really stopped reading around page 110. I don't know what happened. Like it just got uninteresting, or you lost me. Like that's great feedback too. But it doesn't help me solve it. It tells me where the problem is. It doesn't tell me how to solve the problem. So we're back to the same problem where I don't solve it. Yeah. I know there's a problem, but I can't fix it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Did you have any English teachers throughout your whole school career that had like a real influence on you as a writer?
Yeah, I've had some amazing English teachers. I actually went to a high school that was like a magnet school. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like the Fame High School, where it's just performing arts. I did acting and writing for the second half of the day, and did regular stuff in the morning, science and whatnot.
Regular stuff, science, math.
Having a math teacher dad, like, you're just like, no, I don't want to deal with any of this math bullshit.
My son wants more math. Give him more math.
Get me to the film class, man. That's, like we're watching The Seventh Seal or whatever.
Brian,
cool.
You should write a book about math. Maybe that's what you're missing.
No, thank you.
Someday.
But yeah, I had some great teachers that turned me on to like the Beat Generation, Kurt Vonnegut, random people like Joan Didion and like essayists and through them, short story writers. But actually, one of my high school screenwriting teachers was. At the time, Seinfeld was really big. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but Seinfeld was the biggest show on TV, and it was the only show that my parents let me watch. So I loved that show, obviously, and my screenwriting teacher wrote the spec script for Martin. So that, the Martin Lawrence show, but it got bought by Larry David. And it was turned into the episode where Elaine doesn't know whether her boyfriend is black or white. That was the pitch for Martin. He wrote this episode where Tisha Campbell or whatever doesn't know if her boyfriend's black or white. So, and it got bought by Seinfeld. They changed it. So he had written that. He'd also written How Stella Got Her Groove Back and Waiting to Exhale. And he was great. But also, like, he had a Hollywood career and was like, no, you guys, I am not, like, grading your papers or whatever you do. So it's just one of those things where it helped. He actually provided some great advice by doing that, which is that, like, sacrifice everything for your passion. Like, lose your job, get fired. Like, don't show up for work if, like, you have an interview or you have an audition or whatever. Like, that, you're not gonna remember that job. Fuck that shit. Like, he was like, this teaching job paid him less than like one script. So why would you care about it? And that actually was good. It was inspiring. his teaching incompetence was actually really inspiring.
Why do you think he still taught, even though like he was selling scripts?
I think two things happened. One is that he got really big after taking the job, and he had signed a contract, and so he was like, I feel like a dick, but I'm not going to be there this week. I'm in LA. I'm making this show or whatever. And two, they didn't have anybody else. This is in Hartford, fucking Connecticut, the middle of, like one of the most violent cities in America. It might have been the murder capital of the country at the time. And, he's like, I don't have anybody who can cover for me. There's no like substitute teacher who can teach screenwriting.
Right.
Like, we could have taught the class better than anybody you could find, So he just didn't show up, and we watched movies, which is what you do when you don't have a teacher in other class. So,
yeah.
But they were good,
What are
movies,
some of your favorites? Like movies?
Some of my favorite movies.
Yeah, of all time.
All right, ready? I'm gonna list them all off.
Go.
like their magazine titles. My favorite movies are, ready? I've always wanted someone to ask me this. I should have this all ready to go. Once Upon a Time in America, Pulp Fiction, Blow Up, Annie Hall, Some Like It Hot, California Split, Seven Beauties, and throw a random one out there. I don't know. The Long Goodbye. All right.
All
there we go.
right.
That's like a top 10.
Yeah.
There you go.
How long has that been your pretty solid group of favorite movies?
Actually, I would say it wasn't until my late 20s that I saw about half of those movies. Once Upon a Time in America and Pulp Fiction were always like right at the top from the moment I saw them when I was I would say a kid, like maybe a teenager, but I don't think so. I was probably like 12 when I saw each of those. And then the others, like, Robert Altman, I like two of those are Robert Altman movies, and I don't think I saw them until after he died. So I'd been in my late 20s, and there was like IFC Center in New York playing every Robert Altman movie, which none of them are on DVD or streaming because they're like made for $10 with 7, people in it. And that's like, and it's like the only way you could see it is to go to that movie that day in New York, and I did, and I fell in love with it, and now it's like obviously available on more platforms, but
Criterion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, some of those are on Criterion, but like I want to, it's weird how many of them are like Robert Altman movies are not on there. I'm not sure why, but like I can't even think of one. Yeah, which is really weird because he's, I would say, the best filmmaker that this country has ever produced. Wow. You could make a case for Spielberg for sure, and I wouldn't argue against it, but certainly underappreciated comparatively. Yeah. So,
what is it about his movies that makes him like eligible for being the top filmmaker?
Well, I'm definitely a little biased because his style is so like appealing to me. Pull the camera way back. The audio is all over the place. There's like 10 conversations happening in MASH where you're just like, the third or fourth time I saw it, I was like, oh, there was a joke there. I completely missed it. I love that he just like, it's like anarchy, but also incredibly well acted. He just had a really good eye for like undiscovered actors like Bud Cort and all these guys who came along, Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland. He discovered them all in like one movie because he saw them in some play. He was like, every one of these guys is going to be in this movie. And he was right. All of them. They all became movie stars, Yeah, it's a lot of that. But also his like comedy sense is so unusual. Nobody else is as sarcastic, but as like deliberately sloppy and druggy. Like it seems like everybody is stoned in his movies, and he's stoned. So like you watch any of his movies now and just think marijuana.
Do you think you can tell which directors are high in some movies? Like they're definitely high during this.
Yeah. Well, yes. Definitely Robert. I mean, like, Martin Scorsese is high, but on different drugs and in different decades, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, the drugs in the 80s are starting to kick in. After Raging Bull, you see a lot of cocaine here, which is great. The movies are good. Yeah. But they're you can see it. I think
in his later work when he's not doing cocaine.
Yeah, and then you can see it in later work that it's like tighter. There's less scenes of people like screaming randomly. I just made that up.
No, can't confirm. There definitely is screaming.
Yeah, like King of Comedy has like a lot of like shrill, loud people in it, and like Robert De Niro's clearly coked out the entire movie. But like Age of Innocence, I'm pretty sure Daniel Day-Lewis is not on coke, and yeah. People in The Departed probably are on coke, but not Scorsese. So.
Yeah. What kind of movies do you think that there are not of? Like sentence get away from me.
Sessions with Mary Jane.
What kind of movies?
This director is on cocaine.
What kind of movies are there not enough of? Yes, I did it.
Oh, yeah, like anarchistic comedies. Like, I mean, thinking back to like old school and like those Todd Hayes, the Todd movies are all fucking really, really tight. Even like after Borat, I want to say, like, there's outside of those, I don't feel like there's any movie that I just don't feel like the movie is even in control of itself, which is always fun to see. Is like a lot of those Robert Alt movies, MASH. It's like there's no fucking plot. There's like 20-minute scenes of people playing football where nothing happened. Fuck you! I don't give a shit. You could never do that anymore because everything has to be like old school and The Hangover, and a lot of like indie films, people like that get financed and funded are like emotionally powerful David Lowery stories, like Ghost Story, whatever. They're not like, no one's going to make an anarchistic comedy for like $5 million. It's too much money to lose. So it's either drama or Hollywood comedy, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love to see. Let's do it. Let's make a fucking movie, you guys.
Well, it's got comedy of a school shooting.
Yes.
Yes.
We need a rich anarchist who's down with this idea. That's all we need. So if you're out there, rich anarchists, we're ready. We're ready to make your movie for you.
We need to talk about Kevin Hart.
Wait, what was the title of that book? You didn't say. What did you title that book?
Well, I had to put a title on it and like to send it out, and I was like, I don't know. It went through all these different titles, and I think the last title was The World's Own, which is not a good title, and it's certainly not a comedy title, but I'm sure we would have come up with something eventually.
Okay, just sidebar.
Yeah, I know, it's so lame.
Yeah.
What's super lame title?
What's your favorite title of a book, just like off the top of your head? Like, what's the one that, like, the title, like, the book could be ass.
Garden and Gun.
Yeah, that would be a good title for a book, but you're like, what is this book going to be about?
Mystery?
Gardens and guns? I don't know. This sounds fun as shit. Yeah, good titles. I don't know, like, the funny thing is books don't have good titles. Like something short that you can remember. It fits on the cover, right? Like, I mean, yeah, they always expand them for the movies or whatever. It's like, because of Winn-Dixie or what, it's always like 10 more words or something. The Shawshank Redemption actually is shortened, but yeah, I don't know.
Infinite jest, because it causes infinite hate from people.
That's right. Like, I think of bad titles, like Catcher in the Rye, I think is one of the worst titles for a book. It's a bad, unmemorable, boring sounding title. Like, what is that about?
About bread?
Like, it definitely doesn't sound like a comic novel that we have to read in school and like
it does not.
Divisive as fuck.
Yeah,
right?
it does not. Yeah, Catcher in the Rye. Oh, it sounds just like something like The Sound of Music that like Julie Andrews would be. It's Catcher in the Rye. Like something a musical she'd be in. Yeah.
I'm listening to that crossover.
Right? Yeah, they're all so lame. Anyway.
But Shakespeare,
or they're like
Shakespeare when his titles were
the characters mostly.
Yeah.
Never mind, scratch.
The Heart is a Lonely Hunter is one of my favorite books, but the title is like,
The Heart.
It just sounds like it's going to be super depressing, and I mean, spoiler alert, it's a fucking depressing book, but yeah, titles suck.
Yeah, they do.
That's why I was like, wizards. It sounds like it's sci-fi. And you're like, what? This is a nonfiction book? I don't know. It was just came out.
Oh damn! My English teacher skipped that. I read Man's Search for Meaning instead. A much happier book.
Ugh.
What's that?
It's about Viktor Frankl and how he got out of the Holocaust with hope.
Damn.
Yeah, I think.
Wow.
I think that was
all right.
it.
Thanks, Jordan.
Just hope.
Thanks for the rec. Putting on my list right now.
Yeah. Brian, if you had to give your autobiography title right now at this point in your life, what would your autobiography be titled?
My Own Worst Enemy, a memoir. I don't know. I just that was the first.
Mr.
Something like
Fairbanks.
that.
Douglas
Maybe
Fairbanks.
something like bad dates, gardens, and guns.
Oh, that's great.
A lot of
buy it.
gardens in my life, man.
What would the cover picture be?
Me really stoned with like something in my pupils, like I don't know, like social media, like a dating app, logos all in the whites of my eyes.
Oh
Oh man.
Put me on the spot.
I just wanted to rope the list back in here, but if you have any magazines you want to just shout off.
Oh yeah, ready?
Yep.
I'm ready. Okay, so not only is there Harper's, but there's Harper's Bazaar. I know this because someone keeps sending their Harper's Bazaar to my house and not changing the address, and they won't call the person and tell them to change the address. So I just have piles of this magazine that I don't want. I also get Entertainment Weekly and the Hollywood Reporter because they were 2-for-1 deal for like $10. So how can you say no to that? But man, I could just start doing magazines all night, just rattling off names of magazines.
We ain't going nowhere.
Oh yeah.
It's up to you. You decide when the podcast ends. Everybody has a different category.
Okay.
We've had people.
Leaving.
Last year, someone had like 92, 94 of something on their list. So we're starting a fresh.
It was bodybuilders. They named 94 bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
that is just way too intense.
Who's so far the reigning champ? What's the number?
Right now, Lemaire Lee from Oh yeah.
What is his
yeah,
number?
afterward, yeah. Lemaire got like for like this year for total forever.
Total from he's only on our show once. What
yeah.
was his episode?
Yes. Someone named over 100 strains of weed. I think it was like 105 strains.
Yeah,
of
but
weed.
that was last year. You're right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Never mind. He was the reigning champ. But for this year so far,
yeah, Lemaire got like 32 breakfast cereals. So yeah.
So,
wow. All right, that's insane. I won't try to top that because we'll be here for days. A magazine for every subject.
I'm just waiting to get more in the mail.
If only I knew math magazines.
I mean, everyone has a magazine now. There's Martha Stewart Living. There's, whatever, the Oprah magazine. Everybody has their own magazine. Right, so you just have to think of famous people and like, do they have a magazine? They probably do. Every kind of music has like 10 magazines. There's Mojo, Rolling Stone. There's like too many to keep up with. But yeah, there's one for every letter probably. The Yellow Pages, not really a magazine, but there's definitely a Y in there. I'm sure there's like
it's light reading.
Publication, no. I could do it. Crap, I don't know. Yeah, the New Republic. There's one for every kind of political bent as well. So the National Review. I already talked about the Economist. So hopefully you got that one.
Mm-hmm. Number 3.
You got a solid list. A solid list.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you have a newsletter.
There's Carmack, Hot Rod.
Oh wait, say that again.
What was that?
You say that again? What'd you list off?
I don't know. Hot Rod magazine, if it still exists. It's a car magazine. Don't get any ideas, Reena.
What?
It's like, how do you spell hot?
Hot Rod magazine.
Rod, as in like Rod Stewart.
No, it's just a bunch
magazine of hot
photos.
Of steaming metal rods. They're just a picture.
Yes. I'm sure there is Car and Driver magazine. Come on.
But I was gonna say you have a newsletter.
Yes.
Or that
thank you for promoting my newsletter. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, no, please. Before we close, of course, leave with your information on the newsletter or anything else you want people to keep a lookout for.
How can we stalk you?
And yeah, how can we stalk you?
Yeah. Definitely stalk me on social media and follow my newsletter. It's a Substack newsletter called The Grid. I don't have the link in my head, but I'm sure it's searchable. So
Definitely
Don't
DM
worry,
it to
folks.
us if you want.
It will be
That's
in the
right.
bio,
Yeah.
the bio
Cool.
of this episode.
And, you can follow me on Twitter where I post it. It's a monthly newsletter. Was started because I realized that I have all these writer friends and, performer friends and people that don't have their own newsletter. And I've been told I should probably put a newsletter together if I'm going to write nonfiction books, because your fans will start following your work and look for updates and things like that somewhere off of social media. So I started the newsletter, but I was like, I can't keep this going right now. I'm too busy actually writing and I don't have anything to promote. So I had the idea that, with all of my friends like me, don't have their own newsletters, don't have their like a big promotional mouthpiece to promote anytime they have like a new single or they wrote an article for a magazine. If we could all put this newsletter out to our friends, they would all sign up and then they would hear about it like, oh, Brian Fairbanks has a new book out and I know it because I'm on the Grid's mailing list. And so the idea is that everyone's supposed to submit their links, when they get published. Instead, what has happened is that all these people signed up, and then my friends, being stoner writers, slackers, do not send this material and promote it. So it became the Brian Fairbanks mailing list. And I'm like, I don't have enough material for this. I am the one who's trying to get material from you guys to keep it going. So it has become actually a music related mailing list because that's what I'm writing about right now. And every month I put together a playlist of the best song from every album I listen to. And I probably listen to 300 or 400 albums a month.
Wow.
In their entirety, and try to pick the best track, like hip hop, classical, and everything in between. And people will send me my band has an album out, but usually it's people tell me that their favorite, oh, I really love this, this single by someone I'd never heard of. I just heard it randomly in a bar and it's a new release and they send it to me and it goes on the list. So it's been really great to turn people on to new artists that I have also fallen in love with while just sitting here writing, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Who is this? And spreading the good vibes, man, the good tunes.
Nice.
Amen.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is the final number on his list?
Right.
Yeah,
You got a solid 14 magazines.
I can definitely come up with more than 14 magazines, but we'll stop there. That's good.
Before you go, Brian, I was just curious, what color would you say your walls are? What if you?
Oh yeah. So I bought this house just before the pandemic, and the idea was to repaint this cream orange,
That's
an
what it
orange.
looks like.
Is that what you? Yeah.
Creamsicle, yeah.
Creamsicle, yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like an orange creamsicle color. It's just in this room, which is the living room, by the way. And the rest of the house does not look like this. It's green or blue or white. It's normal, conservative colors. Let's put it that way. But I bought it from two artists who, one was a erotic photographer, shall we say?
Neurotic or erotic?
Erotic, and probably erotic too, but no, erotic photographer, men in very sexual positions and close-ups of their nakedness.
Okay.
And they're great photos. I mean, it just wasn't. They're very artistic and bohemian, I would say. They had an old van that you would totally picture when you watch the Chris Farley sketch, So, but they were really nice people that painted their walls a really weird color because they were unusual guys. You know, they're not like, we're just gonna make everything normal around here. I mean, they have a hidden mirror room in the shed.
Whoa, what is that? Oh my goodness.
It is, so if you go into my shed, there is a wall that looks like the end of the shed. And you would never know that there's something else behind the wall. There's no door handle, there's no door, there's no window, there's no indication that there's something else there. But if you put your two hands on a special part of the wall and pull it toward you, it pulls in as a secret door. And you go in, and the floor is black, but the ceiling and all the walls are covered in mirrors.
Wow.
And it's really creepy. I'm sure people were ritually murdered in it. No.
I just want to shoot something there. We need to keep that location in mind.
Yes, come on down. Let's do something weird. I'm actually going to make my next TikTok video about it, which I will share with everyone. But yeah, it's cool. Like, I've had like friends come over and smoke in there, and it's just like, okay, this is very claustrophobic after 10 minutes, you know. But then they tell everybody about it. They go back to the party and they're like, you gotta go in there. It's amazing. It's like a sweat lodge, you know, like where you're like in there and you're like meditating kind of,
Zen.
but also you're looking at yourself repeated like 300 times.
You really gotta reflect when you're in there on everything.
Really gotta reflect.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So,
well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
This was such a
Thank
treat.
you guys for doing this. Thanks for having me.
And for the folks at home, we're gonna do a quick plug. We dropped our third film. It's coming in. It's in the festival circuit. 100 words. It's coming. You'll see it when it's released. And that's all. I'm just telling you because we're starting to post it on social media. So just fluffing it up. And as usual, listen to our podcast. Everybody have a great rest of your life.